Welcome to Little English Studio, where English learning meets the inspiring stories of the world's greatest people. Here, we tell powerful life journeys in clear and simple English, so you can improve your English while discovering lessons of leadership, courage, and hope. Today, we bring you the incredible story of George Washington, the first President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army, and the man often called the father of his country. His life was not only about winning battles or leading a new nation, but also about discipline, resilience, and the power of character. Let's begin. George Washington was born on February 22, 1732, in Westmoreland County, Virginia, in a modest plantation family. His father, Augustine Washington, was a landowner and planter. His mother, Mary Ball Washington, was strong, religious, and demanding. George was the eldest son from his father's second marriage. He grew up with many brothers and sisters, in a time when Virginia society was divided between wealthy planters and poor farmers. Unlike many of America's future leaders, George never went to college. His formal schooling ended around the age of 15, but he learned practical skills, mathematics, surveying, and manners from books like The Rules of Civility. These lessons in self-discipline shaped his character for life. As a teenager, George became fascinated with the wilderness and the land. At just 16, he worked as a surveyor, mapping lands in Virginia's frontier. This experience toughened him and gave him a deep knowledge of the American countryside, a skill that would later help him as a military commander. The 1750s brought war to the American colonies. Britain and France fought for control of North America in what became known as the French and Indian War. In 1753, when George was only 21, the governor of Virginia sent him on a dangerous mission to deliver a warning to the French in Ohio Valley. Washington traveled hundreds of miles through snow and wilderness. Though the mission failed diplomatically, it made him known as a brave young officer. The next year, Washington commanded a small expedition that clashed with the French. His troops built Fort Necessity, but were soon defeated. Though it was technically a failure, Washington's courage impressed the British authorities. Later, he served under British General Edward Braddock during a disastrous campaign. Braddock was killed, and Washington narrowly escaped death. 4 bullets went through his coat, but none touched him. This near-miraculous survival gave rise to legends that he was protected by Providence. By the end of the war, Washington had gained valuable military experience, leadership skills, and a reputation for bravery. But he was frustrated too. As a colonial officer, he felt the British Army looked down on Americans. This planted seeds of independence. In 1759, Washington married Martha Custis, a wealthy widow with 2 children. Their marriage was happy and brought him financial stability. Washington became one of the richest planters in Virginia, managing Mount Vernon, his estate on the Potomac River. He tried to live as a gentleman farmer, raising tobacco, wheat, and livestock, entertaining guests and serving in the Virginia House of Burgesses, the colonial assembly. Washington enjoyed fox hunting, dancing, and reading about military science, but beneath this peaceful life, tensions were growing between Britain and the colonies. Taxes like the Stamp Act 1765 and the Townshend Acts angered colonists. Washington, though cautious at first, began to oppose British policies. He believed in loyalty, but he also believed in liberty. By the early 1770s, Washington had transformed from a loyal British subject into a committed patriot. In 1774, Washington attended the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia, where delegates from the colonies discussed how to resist British oppression. Washington stood tall, literally at 6 feet 3 inches. He was an imposing figure, and silently impressed everyone with his seriousness. When fighting broke out at Lexington and Concord in 1775, the colonies needed a military leader. Washington was chosen unanimously as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. He accepted, saying, "I do not think myself equal to the command I am honored with," but history would prove otherwise. Washington faced enormous challenges. The Continental Army was poorly trained, poorly equipped, and often unpaid. His soldiers were farmers and volunteers, fighting the most powerful empire in the world. His first success was the Siege of Boston, 1776, where he forced the British to evacuate, but soon came defeats. He lost battles in New York, and his army was often close to collapse. Yet Washington never gave up. In the winter of 1776, he made a bold move, crossing the icy Delaware River on Christmas night and surprising the Hessian troops at Trenton. This victory revived American morale. Over the next years, Washington endured hardship at Valley Forge, where his troops starved and froze. But under his leadership, and with the training of Baron von Steuben, the army became stronger. Finally, in 1781, with help from the French, Washington trapped the British at Yorktown. The British general Cornwallis surrendered. The revolution was won. Washington became not just a general, but a symbol of perseverance, courage, and unity. After the war, Washington did something extraordinary. He gave up power. He resigned as commander to the Congress, returning to Mount Vernon. King George III reportedly said, "If he does that, he will be the greatest man in the world." Washington wanted a peaceful life, but the new United States was weak. The Articles of Confederation failed to unite the country. In 1787, Washington presided over the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, guiding the creation of a stronger constitution. In 1789, he was unanimously elected the first president of the United States. As president, Washington set precedents that shaped the office forever. He formed a cabinet with Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, Henry Knox, Edmund Randolph. He supported a strong but limited federal government. He remained neutral in foreign wars, especially between Britain and France. He signed the Bill of Rights into law. He faced challenges too, rebellions at home, political divisions, and criticism from newspapers. But he kept the nation together. After 2 terms, Washington refused a third, establishing the tradition of peaceful transfer of power. In his farewell address, he warned against political parties and foreign entanglements, words still quoted today. Washington retired to Mount Vernon in 1797. He returned to farming but stayed active in public affairs. In December 1799, after riding in cold rain, he developed a throat infection. On December 14, 1799, George Washington died at the age of 67. His death shocked the nation. He was mourned not just as the first president, but as the man who embodied the American ideals of liberty, sacrifice, and leadership. George Washington's story teaches us, discipline builds character, true leaders serve, not rule. Courage means standing firm in hard times. The greatest power is knowing when to give it up. This was the life of George Washington, the soldier, the statesman, and the father of a new nation. His journey from a young surveyor in Virginia to the first president of the United States shows us that greatness is not about ambition alone. It is about service, humility, and integrity. At Little English Studio, we share these stories to help you improve your English while learning the lessons of history's greatest people. Thank you for watching.